Welcome back. The Ministry of Health in Mozambique has announced plans to immunize around 12 million Mozambican children as a nationwide vaccination campaign begins today. The campaign against measles and rubella covers children between the ages of 6 months and 14 years. According to official health ministry data, measles currently affects more than 90,000 people, over half of whom are children. The official launch of the vaccination campaign was led by the First Lady, Isara Nyusi, accompanied by the Health Minister, Nazira Abdullah. Ms. Nyusi asked parents and guardians to take their children to the vaccination centers to get them treated. A family of Gambian women started writing children's books with African stories as a hobby, while the publications have become popular across Africa and beyond. The books, which are now sold in various countries worldwide, are also key tools in the campaign to improve literacy and empower young girls in the Gambia.
He loves almonds, and the almonds love him.
10-year-old Fatu Kasama is reading one of her favorite books to children from her home in Kafuta, a town 90 minutes outside Gambia's capital, Banjul. The book is part of a series of African-inspired adventures from Fire Network, a foundation run by a family of Gambian women in the diaspora promoting literacy and education back home. Anna Fire, her two sisters, and their mother, Lucy Fire, a World Bank economist, started Fire Network in 2007 as a hobby, but it has grown into a powerful tool to influence young children and help them discover their heritage.
Africans need to take over the narrative of telling the African story. We want to use the African experience, the African voice, the African perspective to teach others, but also ourselves, so we can be proud to say, here is a children's series written by Africans for African children, and of course the rest of the world can also learn from it.
We need education. Education is the master key.
As part of their outreach, Fire Network hosts public readings at schools and libraries. The network also donates books, helping to stock libraries like this one in Kafuta, where children can borrow them for free.
When you read, for example, the stories of Peter and Jane, and they're talking about having a pet dog, and the dog jumps on the bed. Here in most African cultures, we don't have that experience where our dogs are not indoor dogs. But when you talk about an African story, a children's story where the dog is outside and it's running and it's chasing us, kids can relate to that because that's actually how they're living and that's their experience.
UNICEF's figures on literacy from 2008 to 2012 show that only 51% of Gambians between the ages of 15 and 24 years can read and write. As in most developing nations, fewer Gambian girls are in school.
We're the ones responsible for pushing, especially children between the ages of 2 and 14, because those are the years that are the foundation years. And once you get them, at that age, you're able to instill a sense of confidence in them that makes them know that they can compete on the same level as a boy, and most of the time they can even surpass them.
Before a ban on child marriage in 2016, 30% of girls got married before the age of 18. Anna says stories like Princess Halima are aimed at helping to break a culture where girls feel like they are not at the same level of ability and intelligence as boys. Reading helps promote learning and builds confidence, especially in girls. The Fire women say they want to get more African children's books into schools and homes, not just in Gambia, but worldwide, and especially across Africa.
He's just a law. He is just a song.
And for lovers of good African music in Toronto, Canada, Cert Radio Station is the station to listen to. Radio presenter at the radio station and founder of Batuki Music Society, Nadine McNulty, gives her listeners a taste of African music in an attempt to bring Africans in diaspora together.
Toronto has one of the most diverse populations in Canada. That includes a large community of Africans from all over the continent. Founder of Batuki Music Society and radio presenter Nadine McNulty and her co-presenters host the weekly Karibuni musical show, popular to thousands of Africans living in Toronto. According to Nadine, she was inspired to create a show dedicated to African music 15 years ago after extensive travels on the African continent.
radio program basically is a voice, and it's a platform for not just African artists in Canada, but all of the communities who they are hailing from. We have large populations of African artists and community members living in Toronto, across the country. So I look at my radio program as a way to provide a voice, to provide visibility to communities that are underserved and not heard in the mainstream.
The show has helped popularize African music in Toronto. With the show running, African artists have been able to stage more performances in Canada. Nadine says the Bukuti Music Society connects culturally diverse African performance with audiences in Toronto.
I'm using it as sort of a template, as a mentoring place for African youth and other African community members who want to come in and want to learn how to be on radio. So my program is very open. I have a lot of visitors, usually every week, and sometimes people tell me they're coming, sometimes they don't. But I have the open door policy in the sense that I do want to welcome all African artists and any members of the community that have something important to say about culture.
Ruda Silva, a native of Angola, is one of the people who has benefited from Nadine's training on the show.
She mentored me on how to present, how to be on air, because one thing is talking in person, the other thing is talking on the radio. And we were introduced by a friend who also have a passion in music, introduced me to Nadine. Nadine invited me to the show, and people, they liked what they heard, voice, and she helped me to operate the board and run the show, co-host the show with her in Mr. Toronto.
Through this initiative, artists from various parts of the continent come together at the annual Abari Africa Festival.
In Somalia, the Ministry of Sports holds a mini-marathon despite security threats, encouraging Somali youth to take part in a race through the war-scared capital. Organizers say the race was the first of its kind in the city since Somalia was plunged into unrest in 1991 and is a symbol of the relentless battle to secure the city.
Up to 500 youth participate in a mini-marathon in Somalia's capital, Mogadishu, running one of the most dangerous tracks in the world. Hours after the marathon ended, 2 blasts were reported in the city. Officials from the Sports Ministry and Somalia's Olympic Committee say security was tight during the race, and its successful completion was a sign that life in Mogadishu will move on in the face of attacks.
It's the first such race to be held in Mogadishu in the last 20 years. It was an initiative of the Somali Ministry of Sports.
Runners in the 3-kilometer race are active in other sports like football, basketball, volleyball, which are gaining popularity as the country sees a resurgence in sports. Many of the stadiums in Mogadishu have been turned into military spaces under Al-Shabaab, and sporting events were banned. The winner, Ali Ido Hassan, finished the race in 10 minutes 23 seconds.
I am very happy to win Mogadishu Mini Marathon. It is the first time that I have participated in such game, and I hope to win many more races. I am a member of the Somali national athletics team.
Organizers say this will be the first of many more annual road races.
And that's it on today's program. Thank you for watching. I am BC Adebayo.